Going to open to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 1 says, "To everything there's a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up, not just planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to rend, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace." Let's have Jack House open up prayer. Oh, you guys can see it. I would say probably a lot of people have heard those verses. They're very popular, and I'll be honest, if something's very popular, I'm not very good at teaching it. So I'm not very comfortable teaching it, but I didn't want to skip it just because it's not my forte in life. I like teaching on stuff that's not popular, but something like this, a lot of people's heard, and I guess I don't like it because we already have it predisposed of what it is, and I don't like that. So I kind of struggle more when you guys actually know the Bible, right? How's that sound? No, but there is a time for everything. You can use it good or bad, because that's kind of the main point I want to get across is you can use that and say, well, now's not the time. And I could say, well, now is the time. There's an argument we could have about that. But what I want for us to realize is how to discern the time. Is now the time, or is it now the time not to do that? Instead of saying, well, there is a time for all. Well, there is a time for all of it, but I need to figure out when it is the time for it. That's more what I'm concerned about. I'm not going to preach it like a time for hate and a time. I mean, if you don't like that, then just pray about it and study the Bible more, and you find that you don't like people. You can find hatred in yourself. I promise you, it's not that hard. But if that's your problem with it, then I understand. But pray about it more. I'm more worried about you doing it at the right time. Things are always changing. I know guys never change. You go all that, but I'm always changing. I'm not the same person I was at 19 when I first started. And you're gonna see in a second. You probably see me at all. You see me cry. You see me laugh. You see me do all those things. It's just going to be your job to pick up on, is it time or not the time to do it. And it's not really that difficult. Just discern what time it is. Before we get into all that, I want to go back to Ecclesiastes 2 real quick, because I didn't want to put on the board nothing because it's kind of a closing thought on the chapter. Because the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Ecclesiastes 2. And I mentioned this a couple of times. I always said we would get to it, and then it was my time to get to it, and I kind of skipped over it a little bit. So I don't want to skip over too much. But we saw here there's a bunch of vanity, and he went and did a bunch of stuff. He planted orchards and vineyards. Hopefully you kind of remember all that stuff. And we talked about last week how wisdom excelleth all those fun things of life. And there's something better out there, and it's wisdom. But I just want to show you the contrast where you guys might struggle at times in the Bible if you read it. Ecclesiastes 2:17. We'll get to Ecclesiastes 3 in a second. This is kind of an afterthought. I didn't finish it last week, and I'll do it real quick. Not real quick, but Ecclesiastes 2:17 says, "Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought in the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that should be after me." The part I'm not really focusing on all that stuff because I didn't take the set time side. You kind of get the point, I think, by now. But the part I kind of want to show you about here is if you skip up just a couple of verses to verse 24, The same guy writes this: there is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that was from the hand of God. So just real quick, I'm not trying to throw you off because we're getting back to Ecclesiastes 3. But he says there, I hated life. Why? Because of work. And then just, 8 verses? I'm not good at math. He says there's nothing better than for a man to enjoy his labor. I thought you hated life because of labor. So you see there's going to be stuff like that you're going to come across. But the main thing we didn't read in verse 17 that we read in verse 24 was the last part say? I saw that was from what? The hand of God. So when you get God involved in your labor, you can actually enjoy it. So I just didn't want you guys to sit there and think I saw that and thought, well, I can't explain that one, so I skipped it or nothing. That's an easy explanation, and it's so easy sometimes I forget to just explain it. You can. There is nothing better for you guys to go home and relax, enjoy everything, if it's from the hand of God. But if not, you'll hate it, and you'll hate life. Because if you read in verse 26, it said, for God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom, and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he gives travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vain and vexation of spirit. It's almost like there's 2 decks of cards out there you can get. You can enjoy your labor, you can hate it. All depends on how you're serving the Lord. So I just want to address that way we aren't confused. The hand of the Lord showed up in one, and he said there's nothing better. Do it your way, and he said I hated life because of it. So you just take that as you need to. But we'll move on to Ecclesiastes 3. I just wanted to make sure it was clear as crystal. Hand of God was involved in one, and it wasn't the other one. The hand of Solomon wasn't the other one, right, with all of his stuff. So just kind of remember that. But back to Ecclesiastes 3. To everything there's a season and a time and a purpose under the heaven. If you look at Genesis 1:14, not real fast, but Genesis 1:14, and I'm not going real deep into this. That's why I probably don't feel like I'm the best at teaching this. I feel like someone would be a lot better at teaching this. It's because on this stuff, you just hit on a lot of stuff, and you don't actually stop and go through a whole thing. I feel like I'm personally better if I stop and go through the whole thing, and then, okay. But we're just going to be hitting on some stuff, give you some stuff to think about. But Genesis 1:14, and God said, let there be a light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. I'll just explain it like this real quick. The Lord put the moon up there for a reason. Why? For signs, for seasons, for days and years. This is why I don't want to go too deep into it, because I feel like people really like this stuff, so I don't want to go too deep, because then you just get hooked on that one thing. But if you know the moon a little bit, you look up there and it's a little different every night. It changes a little different every day. I think it takes like 28 days for it to orbit the Earth. Don't quote me on that, please. I think it's roughly something like that. 24? Oh, yeah. I thought he was being for real because I don't know. But if you look at it, it's a little different every day, correct? And I'm supposed to be able to tell that. Well, how do I tell that? Well, I just look up and I see, it's a half moon. I call it a half moon. It's probably not called a half moon. Or then I see sometimes it's a little sliver. I don't know what you call that. But then I see sometimes it's a full moon. That's a sign for us. It's going to be the same way in your life. Sometimes I'll be full moon, I'll be happy, I'll be ecstatic. And sometimes it'll be a little sliver, and that's when you're going to be needing to build back up, you're going to be weeping. But it's my job to figure that out. Is it hard to figure out the moon? No, I just look at it and I can tell. I should just be able to look at it and I can tell what the timing is right for. And that's where I don't want to say, well, now's not the time. When people say that probably is the time for that, just they don't like it. So I don't want to use that as an alibi. So now is the time. How do you know? Well, just look at it. Just look at Mitch and you'll be able to probably tell what time it is for me in life. I honestly feel like as I get older, I don't enjoy it as much, right? I'm going to be 25. I'd rather go back to 20 again. It just feels like life would be easier. But I'm going into a different time of life now, as they say. I'm becoming more of a man and more of a man than 30, and then 35, and then I've basically already peaked. But 25, you're kind of actually becoming more of a man. I'm in a different time now. Well, how's that? Well, you just look at me. I don't look the same as I did at 19. I won't look the same at 35. Just like you just look at the moon, it looks different. So you got to be able to discern that stuff. It's not that hard to discern, but we make it hard. Look at Matthew 16:3. Matthew 16:3. I'm just saying all this stuff because a lot of people use that and say, what's a time to love? Yes, there is a time to love. You got it. But there's also a time to hate. So just because you're a lovable person doesn't mean you can't hate stuff at times too. Don't say, well, that's out of place. That's not the time for that. Well, it could be. You just got to look at it. Matthew 16:3. We need to be able to discern the time. Matthew 16:3. It says, in the morning it will be a foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. Oh, you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky. I can discern the moon, right? I can, as there's some rain clouds coming, like, hey, look, guys, I'm going to get home, it's going to start raining. I can discern that, but what does he say? Well, you cannot discern the signs of the times. You can't discern the time of your life that you're in, or you can't discern the time of life I'm in, or the type of mood I'm in, because you're a hypocrite, or you're just ignorant, or you just don't care. There's a lot of stuff you can go on there. But the Lord says you can discern the weather, you can discern the moon, but when it comes to important stuff you need to discern, you don't have a clue. So we need to have a clue about when it's the time to kill or time to heal or time, because it's very important stuff. Because I don't know if you noticed, it's complete opposites. Kill or heal. I think if I would kind of make a big deal of that, because now we're dealing with stuff that's like a pistachio and that's an almond. No, it's totally two different things. Killing and healing. But there's a time for all of it. And we need to be able to figure out the important stuff when it is time for all that. Look at 2 Timothy 4:2. But I want to show you real quick, there's going to be some things that's all the time. You come to church, it's all the time. You don't have to question that. Because then I'll say all this stuff, and well, I think it's just now my time in life where I need to take a month off from church. Or I think it's just now my time in life where I need a month off from anything Bible related. I'm just going on down every avenue that I think people use and abuse it. No, you're supposed to preach in season and out of season. You're supposed to read the Bible in season, out of season. So that's the thing you need to realize. There's never a time not to do that. 2 Timothy 2:4 says, or 4:2 I should say, 2 Timothy 4:2 says, preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. So that's going to be your guys' job. You don't feel like coming, don't matter. And then you're not supposed to be a jerk when you show up. What does it say? Long suffering. And then with what? Doctrine. I don't feel like preaching all the time. Tonight, I'd rather probably pass the torch to somebody else because, like I said, I don't feel like I preach stuff that you guys already know too great. Like, I'll just say that for somebody else. But that doesn't mean I can just sit there and do that. Preaching in season, out of season, long suffering with doctrine. I'm trying to give you good doctrine on it tonight. That way you don't take it and run with it and make a mess of stuff. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about. You always have the time to do the Bible, come to church. In season, out of season, you're good to go on that. Look at Romans 13:11. I'm just trying to get you guys. The main point is realizing when is the time. Because if you probably didn't read it, or you probably didn't count when I was reading it, there's 28 things there. That's why the moon orbits every 28 days-ish. It lines up. But I don't want to go too deep into that. But you got 28 decisions you have to make when it's the time for it. That's a lot, isn't it? So I think it's important that we know when it's not, to discern that. I can discern the moon, but I can't discern your guys' moods and stuff. That's not a good thing. Romans 13:11. And that knowing the time that now is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. I was just going to say this before we went into it, because it always needs to be reminded. Now's the time for you to study, to read the Bible, to come to church. That stuff you don't have to question. Other stuff I can question, we can debate it, and we go through the whole thing about it. But that, you come to church, you preaching, you realizing now's the time, there's no debate on that. But now we're going to get into the stuff of the 28 different things, the 28 different moons, as whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter to me what you call it, however you like to study it. But go back to Ecclesiastes. That's why you guys realize you're so moody. And that's where people get a little too off in the ditch, and that's why people look at the moons and signs. You hear people talk like that, right? So full moon out tonight, well, what does that mean? Well, it lines up with the Bible because 28 different things, it takes the moon 28 days to orbit. So that's why you guys are moody. Because you go through all this stuff in a month. You burn through it pretty quick. That's why it's not It's not very hard to figure out because every day you're going through something else. So I can basically figure that out. Just what is it today? But Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. The first one, a time to be born. I think that's pretty easy to understand. It takes 9 months to be born, right? It takes time. Mitch Jones, August 21st, 1996. Took time. That was my time to be born. You can give the day you were born. Man, I just went blank. Oh, there you go. The day you got born. Man, say it, Mitch. When you got saved, there you go. That could be another birthday, as they say. I don't know why I was trying to. Sometimes I wonder about myself, but the day you got saved, you could say that. That was your time to be born, and then you got your whole life started now. So now that we're born, you got all these emotions, all these things coming your way, and it's going to be your job to discern it. That's why I said it's better to go back to be 20, because I didn't really have to. At 20, people let you buy with stuff. I'll just wait at that. But at 25, they expect more from you. But the time to be born and time to die makes sense, right? You're born and you die. Everybody deals with that. A time to plant. Like this is where I could go over each and one. But there's a time for somebody to plant the seed for you guys, because that's what you need. You need to be fed. And there's tons of verses on this stuff. And that's why I feel like I don't do good, because I like to go to every verse and show you. But then when it's just physically impossible to do that, and you have me talk about it, I struggle at just talking about it. But there's a time to plant. Makes sense. Sometimes you're going to come to Mitch Jones, and you're going to realize he needs to be planted a little bit. He needs a little help. I can deal with that. How should you look at it? Well, just look at the moon, and you can tell. Just look at Mitch, or look at a person, you can tell it's a time to plant right now. Makes sense. So this is where I wish I was a little bit smarter too. But I don't really know garden stuff. I will eventually. But you have to plant your vegetables at certain times. If not, what happens? They die. Same way with people. You have to plant seeds at certain times, because if not, they die. It's too late. They're too cold now. Don't plant your tomatoes in December. Too cold. Don't plant your seed with somebody when they're too cold, when they're not in the mood. I'm not saying, because then you'll be like, well, he wasn't in the mood, so I didn't witness to him. You kind of took that the wrong way, but okay. That's where you need to have discernment on stuff. Amen. But there's a time to plant. I'll keep reading. Time to pluck up that which is planted. Doing the exact opposite now. Now there's a time to pluck it up. Just like when you plant a tomato, if you leave it on the vine, it rottens. So there's a time to plant, and then there's a time to do the exact opposite and to take it down. So you can enjoy it. Enjoy that fruit. If you leave it on there forever, it just sits there and rots away. Pluck it out. A lot of people don't like that part. But I'm trying to show you there's complete opposites, and that's why it's important for you to discern all that stuff. Planting and plucking up is two totally different things. So if you pluck up when you need to plant, you just messed it all up. So it's going to be my job to discern all that stuff, because there's a time for all this stuff. Verse 3, a time to kill. We'll go over these verses here in a second. It says a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. We'll go over the first one I have on the board. I put die on there so we can look at that real quick. I think everybody knows that, but I kind of skipped it, so I don't want to skip it. So look at Genesis 48:21. I'll show you how you guys are a little dramatic sometimes, including myself. But you'll know when it's going to be your time to go. I can look at you and tell. No offense. If you live long enough, at 75 years old, I can look at you and be like, yeah, it's going to be about your time to die. And it's your job to realize that and get stuff in order, right? I could die tomorrow, correct? But looking at me, is it my time to die? No, I could die tomorrow. But unless something crazy happens, which it could, that's not my time right now. Mitch Jones at 75, you can look at him and be like, it's going to be your time to die. You better get stuff in order. Now, I'm not saying this so you don't get stuff in order, because I promise tomorrow we know that stuff. That's where I don't like talking too much, because then you take it and run with it. But just from looks, it's not. But this guy says in Genesis 48:21, and Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. I just think it's important to realize when you're supposed to go. It's important. That way you can have your little goodbye speech. It'd be nice. If you read the Bible, David had his goodbye speech. He had his goodbye speech. It'd be a nice thing if you realize that. Don't be an 80-year-old guy and realize you're still 25. You're not. It's going to be your time to die. But like I said, I can also die tomorrow. You guys could outlive me. So it'd be good also if I looked at it as my time to die tomorrow, and I get my stuff in order, and have my goodbye speech ready. And my goodbye speech is serve the Lord, all right? That's what it is. Not me saying I just really enjoyed, I did enjoy you guys, but if you look at all the goodbyes, and I preached a message about that, everybody's goodbye speech basically is serve the Lord. You should always have that in the forefront of your mind. So if you kind of live your life like that, it will help you out a lot. But there was a time to kill. Look at Numbers 35. I'll just show you some stuff in the Bible where it's time to kill. And this is stuff where it's very simple and it's very easy. And I don't really think a lot of people probably struggle with this, but maybe you do. Numbers 35, verse 30. I'm just going to show you there's a time to kill in your Bible. It says, Numbers 35:30, whoso killeth any person, the murderer shall be what? Put to death by the mouth of witnesses, but one of the witnesses shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. More of you shall take no satisfaction for the life of the murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely be put to death. Is there a time to kill? Yeah. Certain situations will prompt you to have to kill somebody. I'm not going to act like I'm tough and I want to kill anybody, but there is a time for that. Like I said, I probably look at you guys in a bad light because I'm, oh, they know that. But maybe the type of person is you can let somebody smack in your face and hit you so many times and still not kill them. Oh, well, that's not true. There's a time to kill somebody. Sounds weird. And then you're like, what are you talking about? That's what the Bible says. You kill somebody, you get killed. And there's a lot of stories on that. But there's a time you can kill somebody. I really hate saying that. It doesn't even sound right coming out of my mouth because I know how you guys think. You kill them in your heart every day, right? But when rubber meets the road, you can. If you came in my house tonight and broke into my house, is that a time I'm trying to think of one. Is that a time to dance? I probably wouldn't. That's probably not the time. It's the time to kill. I'm just being honest with you. You're going to die. Or I'm going to die. One of us is going to die. I don't know who. I'm not acting like I'm like Rainbow over here. Or what do you call that, Rainbow guy? I'm not, but somebody's going to die. It's not the time to dance. And I think everybody kind of realizes that. And it's kind of almost laughable. But when it comes to some of this other stuff, like breaking and building up, we get it all confused. Like, well, you kind of do the same thing when you build somebody up when you're supposed to break them down, or the opposite. When you're supposed to build somebody up, you break them down. It's totally different stuff going on. That'd be like me dancing with my murderer. I wouldn't do that. I mean, you could call the fight a dance because I'd probably look pretty goofy, but somebody would have to die because there's a time and place for that. Exodus 21, Genesis, Exodus. Exodus 21. That's what I said. I'm probably not the best because that doesn't bother me one bit. I'm not saying I'm a tough guy, but I realize there's a time that people are going to die. There's a time where you get to kill people. Exodus 21:15. Exodus 21:15 says, and he that smiteth his father or his mother shall surely put to death. It's time to kill. That's not the time to dance with that person. It's time to kill him. So you take it as you need to. I don't really think you have to worry about that too much, to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to be one of the things you deal with every day. But there's going to be, you could metaphorically say there's going to be times you need to kill off your sin in life, but instead you're dancing with it. So you see how I could go so many angles with this and it never ends? You're dancing with your sin when you're supposed to kill it. So you just think about it like that way. I'm just showing you there's a time, and it's my job to discern when is the time. Somebody comes in here and they are a threat, it's my time to kill them. Or it's your time to kill them. That's just how it has to be. Because there's a time for everything. I don't really think a lot of people struggle with that, but maybe they do. But that's in the Bible. If you go back to Ecclesiastes, I'll probably have you going back to it a little bit because I want to not think I'm making this stuff up. Ecclesiastes 3. Because the after kill, there's a time to heal. So right after you see something, there's the total opposite of the other one. And that's why it's important we realize what it is. There's a time to be born, and then it goes exact opposite. There's a time to die. There's a time to plant, and there's a time to pluck up. There's a time to kill and there's a time to heal. So you see one thing, you see the exact opposite. I couldn't think of polar opposites more than the ones they're showing us. So just remember that, and you're going to deal with all this stuff in 28 days, every month, probably. I'm just being honest. But Ecclesiastes 3, verse 3, a time to kill, we understand that now. And a time to what? Heal. So after killing somebody, you can heal somebody. I physically don't take that the wrong way. I can't. Don't come up here. I can't heal you, but the Lord can. Amen. Or the Lord can kill you. He can. I mean, there's two decks of cards. That's what Ecclesiastes says. He'll give you joy, if you do the right thing. I mean, you can read it. It's right there if you need to. For God giveth to man good in his sight, wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up. So it's your choice which one you get. It's your choice if you get healed or you get killed in certain situations. So look at the heal thing, Psalms 147. Psalms 147. And I'm not going through all 20 of them tonight. I wouldn't do that to you guys. I haven't listened to me talk that long. But Psalms 147:3. That's why it's important to be very well-rounded as a Christian, because if not, you get stuck on killing people and then you miss out the healing part. Or you get stuck on planing people, but then you get stuck on plucking them out. So it's very good. You got to be very well-rounded. And I feel like we probably like that the most. We just like to do the things we like, including myself. Psalms 147:3 says, He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds. So the same God that told me to kill somebody, the same God who can heal the brokenhearted. Now, like I said, some people might struggle with that. I personally don't. So for me to sit here and act like I can relate to you, I really can't. But the Lord can relate to whatever you got thoughts on this stuff. But that's the same God. He tells you can kill people. The same God can heal the brokenhearted. Psalms 103, verse 3. Psalms 103, verse 3. Psalms 103:3 says, Who forgiveth all thy iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases, who redeemeth thy life from destruction, who crowneth thee with loving kindness and tender mercies. Same God who said, kill the person who smacks their mom. Same God. Okay, I can handle that. That's not the end of the world for me. I'd just rather get on the right side of it. I'd rather be able to discern what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to go for the right stuff. So that's all what tonight's about. The next one is breakdown. I'll have you turn back to Ecclesiastes. I'll try to do a verse at a time, maybe. That way you're not turning back there every time. But I probably won't get through all this tonight anyways. Ecclesiastes 3. Ecclesiastes 3:3. We'll look at these next two. That way we don't have to go back every one. Ecclesiastes 3:3 says, a time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. Once again, polar opposites. If you build something, it's totally opposite than breaking it down. So it's my job to discern what time you're at right now. It's going to be not hard at all if you just look and have the discernment from the Lord. Hosea chapter 10. Ezekiel, Daniel, and you're there. Hosea 10. Sometimes you need broke down because you built some stuff you shouldn't have. Correct. You got it. Has Mitch Jones built some stuff in his life he shouldn't have? Doesn't need broke down? Yes. Doesn't need built back up. I need it out of there, so don't build it back up for me. Because I already struggle with it, per se, let's say. So there's going to be times where you need stuff broke down. Maybe August 11th is the day you need stuff broke down. I can't tell you the exact day because I can't see in the future right now, but I'm giving you an illustration. Hosea 10:2. Hosea 10:2 says, Their heart is divided, now shall they be found faulty. He shall break down their altars, he shall spoil their images. It'd be a very good thing for the Lord to break down some altars in your life you shouldn't have. There is a time for that. There's a time that Miss Jones needs some stuff taken away because I didn't need that. And there's also a time there's some stuff that needs built up. Makes sense. I can track that. But don't people get stuck on just... That's why probably one of my biggest fears is coming in here and you guys, I break you down every Sunday. Every time you preach, like, all this dude does is just tear me down. That's why Mother's Day I really tried to I'm not saying be nice, but to show you stuff you're good at. Because I really don't want to break you down every time. Could I do that? I could, but is that the right thing to do? No, because there's a time for everything. Is there a time for you to come in here on a Wednesday night and get broke down? And me or the pastor? Yeah, there is. But there's also a time that you need built up. So don't get too, because Bible believers get bad at that. All that we do is break it down. I say 24/7, 365 days a year. If I live to be 70 years old, there's always going to be something in my life I'm doing wrong. There is. And you can point that one thing I'm doing wrong at all times. That would get very annoying. That wouldn't help me out too much at times. Because there's going to be times I need built up. Look at Acts 20:52. And we'll do one more. I think you guys are getting the gist of it. Acts 20:52. Yeah, 32. I'm not sure. I wish I could explain it, but yeah, 52, 32. Maybe that's a 3, and I just really wrote it bad. Yeah, I thought it was a 5. That's what it was. Cool. Acts 20:32. It says, "And now, brethren, I commend you to God and to the word of grace, which is able to build you up and to give you an inheritance among all of them which are sanctified." So I think it would be a very bad thing if I have something that can build you up and I kept it from you. That's the way I look at it as a preacher. I have something called the Bible here that's able to build you up, and all I do is break you guys down. I wouldn't appreciate it. So that's why I always try to keep them up. So you might think I'm a little soft at times, but I always just try to remember there's a time for everything. There's a time, you guys, I have something that can build you up. Why not give it to you? And I have something that can break you down, and I'll give it to you. I promise you I will. But at certain times, just like anything, if I always came breaking you down, I don't know if anybody would come. I bet somebody would because they're probably just as weird and like that stuff. But it would get annoying. You need built up because that's what the Bible does for you. It builds you up. We'll close here with Ecclesiastes 3, and we'll go with weeping, and then we'll close. And then next week we can go over some other stuff. Ecclesiastes 3. It's always hard for me to put stuff on the board on nights like tonight because I don't have a blueprint of how long I'm going to talk on each thing. So I never know how much I can get through. So I was just a little off, to be honest. But Ecclesiastes 3, verse 4. Ecclesiastes 3, verse 4 says, "A time to weep," and then what's the next one? "And a time to laugh." Something completely opposite. Some people might laugh and cry at the same time. I don't know. But usually it's usually saying if you don't laugh, you'll cry, because it's opposite. So you can't laugh and cry at the same time, unless you're one of those weird people who like just think everything's so funny. But that's another day. I don't like people like that. But a time to weep, there's going to be a time, at least for everybody in those 28 days. I would say everybody in here, you don't have to admit it to me, don't raise your hand, but everybody in here has cried the last month, I would say. I would say so. There's probably that one person who hasn't. Good for you. I'm not saying it's bad. But I would say everybody in here has cried one time this month. Why is that? Well, because there's a time for it. Just like the moon goes around 28 days, you go around 28 days and you're going to cry at least one time. I've cried the last month, so I'll be the one person. We're one for one. You don't have to raise your hand, but I have. I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm just saying you're going to get in your emotions or you're going to cry. That's what is the weirdest part when I preach and I cry. I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, I've read that a lot of times, but today it was just I had to cry and I don't know why. Well, that was just my time to cry about it. You see what I'm saying? Right now I could read it and I ain't cry about it. Well, it's not my time right now. You see what I'm saying? Well, if it's your time, I'm not going to make fun of you. But Matthew 2:18. Matthew 2:18. Let's go to these verses and we will pick it up next week. Matthew chapter 2, verse 18. If you don't know the story, verse 16, Herod was killing all the kids, and in verse 18, a natural reaction happened. Now it's her time to cry. Matthew 2:18, "In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not." Is that going to be you at times? You got it. And if I see that, it might be a good time for me to build you up and not break you down, because some of this stuff coincides with each other. So if I see you going through that, probably not the time to just sit there and kill you with about how you're going to reap what you sow and everything. Well, your kid died because you reap what you sowed. Have a nice day. Probably not the time for that, right? But that's where you got to get discernment from the Lord. Build somebody up because you have that option with the Bible to build somebody up. You might need to build up right there, right? That seems very obvious to me, doesn't it to you? I wouldn't dare come into her with that happening and have the audacity to do that. I hope you wouldn't either, but we do that sometimes with people. I wouldn't say a lot because then I'm saying you're bad. But you have the tendency to, when somebody cries, blow it off and like, well, that guy's just a baby. I kind of have that tendency. But yeah, you're being a baby. Not everybody's just being a baby. It's just your time to cry. You're going through something. Romans 12:15. Romans 12:15. This is something you should try to grasp. Is Romans 12:15. And realize there's a time and place. And I'm not saying that in the bad way where people say there's time and place. Not you can cry right now if you want to. I'm not going to say that's not the time and place. I'm just saying if you see somebody, they're in that time and place in their life where they're crying. And that's what you should do. Romans 12:15 says, do what? Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. That's very simple. If I see you crying, I'm not going to come over to you and tell you how it's such a great day and everything's amazing in my life. And why are you crying? Look at the sun. It's so sunny out today. Okay, guy. No, what does it say? Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. I can handle that. If somebody's in an upset mood, I can handle me not saying, oh, my life's so amazing, why are you so upset? But people have the tendency to do that. I still don't be that person. Do what the Bible says there. Rejoice with them that rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Look at James 4:9. We just got two more verses. James 4:9. James 4:9. I'll give you guys a second. I don't want to rush it. James 4:9 says, be afflicted and mourn and weep. Let your laughter return to mourning and your joy to heaviness. We shouldn't be laughing all the time. Like all the time. You ever been around those people that's all they do is just laugh? It's like, okay, it's a little much. That's not something you should be doing all the time. Maybe that's your masking thing where you just laugh about everything. I understand. But that's not a very good thing to be laughing all the time, 24/7. You should have those moments where your laughter is turned into mourning and your joy to heaviness. You'll go a lot closer to the Lord that way. Because there's also times where people laughed and it wasn't the right time to laugh. Right? Read your Bible a little bit. Because they try to laugh everything off. You ever been around that person? Like, no, I'm being serious right now. That's not a laughing matter. But they have to laugh everything off. Don't be that person with the Lord. Let your laughter be turned to what? In the morning, your joy to heaviness. So don't be afraid to be an emotional person. You're just fighting against your own, the way God made you. So if you try to laugh everything off, that was not a very good thing at all. Look at Acts 20:19. I see 1 Thessalonians 4, but you guys can look it up if you like to. I think you guys get the point. Things get a lot clearer when you get the Bible out. When you go home tonight, you're thinking about it, man, I really don't, but you'll be able to tell. It's not hard. Just like all these stories you've been able to tell, you'll be able to tell. Acts 20, verse 19. Acts 20:19. Our example, Paul, he's our example, so we're supposed to follow after Jesus Christ and Paul. So serving the Lord with all humility of mind, and when it says in what? With many tears and temptations which befell me by the line and weight of the Jews. So Paul, our example, said what? I serve the Lord with all humility and with many tears and temptations. So I'm not saying you can't laugh, but there's not a time to laugh all the time. Paul doesn't say, I serve the Lord with many laughters. No, he said with many tears and many temptations. Because there's going to be stuff you go through that's going to make you cry or whatnot. Don't laugh it off. That's probably the worst thing you can do. Just let the natural cycle happen. You'll cry about it. You'll feel better. There you go. You're back in church. When you laugh it off, when you never get back in church because you laughed everything off. You never take anything serious. So if I see you cry, I don't think you're a baby. I just think you're taking it serious and it's going to be something good. I never regretted crying. I mean, I have, but I haven't. Does that make sense? I don't like crying in front of people, but I feel better afterwards. So I would just kind of look at it like that. But there's also going to be a time to laugh, but we'll get to that next week. You don't have to cry about everything. You ever been around that person too? Like, I just said a joke. I didn't mean to make you cry. So people are extreme. We've learned that in life so far, haven't we? There's a person that fits every one of these things. Next week we'll go over, you can laugh at stuff. It's okay. You can laugh. You don't have to cry about every little thing. But that's it for tonight. Like I said, I don't really feel like I'm great at teaching on this stuff because I don't like having to talk a lot. I like just having the Bible talk. But I think that kind of made sense, hopefully, for you. You need to be able to discern the time. That's the biggest thing for you to learn from tonight. But go ahead and come up to the altar. That's all I got.